Welcome to Mid-Maryland Votes. Today we are joined by Dr. Brenda Thiam, respected educator, community leader, and former Maryland delegate. She's now running alongside Republican John Myrik for governor and lieutenant governor of Maryland. Brenda brings a clear vision for students, family, and fiscal responsibility. You won't want to miss this conversation. Now let's get into it. Welcome to Mid-Maryland Votes. I'm your host, Mark Flynn. With me is my co-host,
Ethan Lowen.
And we have a very special guest tonight. We have Dr. Brenda Thiam, who is running for lieutenant governor's position, the race for governor of Maryland. Doctor, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Glad to be here, gentlemen. Thank you for having me.
We really appreciate you being here. Now, you are a dynamic woman. You're a doctor. You are a teacher. You have so many things going on. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, dynamic. Wow, that's a pretty hefty word to live up to.
I think you do.
But thank you so much. So yes, I do have my doctorate in special education. I currently teach in Washington County public schools. I teach special ed, grades 3, 4, and 5. I teach reading and math and supporting children in their reading and literacy in 3rd and 4th grade. And if you've not seen 5th grade math lately, it's scary. It's a scary thing. But nonetheless, I do help students in those areas. And I enjoy my job. I've been teaching special ed for many years. I've been a director of a school for children with autism in Montgomery County. I did that for a number of years. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, my role in special ed has been teaching. And I love it immensely.
And you have over 20 years experience, right?
Yes, coming up probably, let me see, I started teaching in 1998, so 27 years now.
And you've been involved in the community. I mean, you're a volunteer in many different organizations.
Yes, I've volunteered in many capacities. My most recent volunteering has been with Partners in Care, helping seniors. I tried working in that field. I've not worked with seniors before, but I was scrolling on Facebook a few years ago and came across an opportunity to help seniors get to various doctor's appointments, grocery shopping, just kind of taking them around as almost kind of like an Uber and being of support to them. They might live alone, engaging in conversation on the way to doctor's appointments. And I love that work in between my time of politics and coming back to the special ed realm. But for the most part, yep, that's pretty much what I've been doing of most recent.
And before we get into your political career, a hot topic issue for society in general, of course, is autism. As you just said, you're an autism specialist. What changes have you seen? Is the situation as dire as many parents are concerned about, and has the treatment, the care changed much in the past several years?
Well, when I started teaching children with autism in 1998, I was working at a nonprofit, a non-public school for children with autism in Montgomery County. And the numbers then, I think, were like 1 in 10,000 were the actual number of incidences. At this point, I mean, I've not checked recently, but I think it's like 1 in double digits at this point, like maybe 1 in 36 or 1 in 34, I think are the numbers, don't quote me directly. But so certainly in the last 25 years, I mean, that's a scary number. Now, that might come by way of we're a lot more cognizant of what autism looks like. So we're catching kids early. We're catching kids at that early age, 18 months, 2 years old, and we're able to diagnose them appropriately and give them the appropriate treatments that they need to not cure autism, because we know there's not a cure, but there are treatments for the symptoms. If it's, maybe not having any verbal communication, then that student or child might have speech and language therapy from a therapist. Maybe they may have occupational therapy, ABA, applied behavior analysis, teaching them how to engage in more appropriate behaviors and not engage in those maladaptive behaviors. So we've come a long way in their treatment of the symptoms of autism. So we're looking forward to what future years have to come to help us really get down to figuring out what's really going on with these numbers.
Brenda, you in 2020 you became a delegate in the House of Delegates, and for District 2B.
Yes.
Can you explain how that came about?
Wow. Let's see. How was that birthed? That was birthed by me complaining to my husband about what Hagerstown was looking like as far as the community is concerned. It was a lot of homelessness, a lot of people on the streets, clearly in a state of, overdosing on drugs, businesses closing a lot downtown. They open on a Tuesday, and within 3 months they're closed. So I told my husband, I said, this is really what's going on in Hagerstown. We didn't move to this community. I'm not from here. We're transplants. We moved here in 2006, and within 10, almost 15 years, it was really just starting to decline. And I've never been in politics before, but from complaining with my husband, I thought, what, something has got to change. And my husband had the audacity to say, "Why don't you just run for office? Just run for local, maybe a city council seat." And I said, "I'm not a politician. I'm a special ed teacher. I don't have time for let other people solve the problems. I'll just complain about the problems." I said that with some being very facetious, but it stuck. I thought, okay. So long story short, I did run for city council in early 2020. I decided to run, and I did well in the primary. I was on my way to the general election in November that was coming up in 2020, but the state delegate seat became vacant. And I thought, wow, that looks interesting. I wonder if I should look at that. Let me Google what is the role of the state delegate looking at the Maryland Constitution. And I read it and I thought, well, that's easy. That's not like connecting neurons and atoms, splitting atoms. I think I can do that. And that's another way I can help my community, help Hagerstown, going to the state legislator and championing those issues that are important to us, getting funding for various projects. That was pretty much what the role of state delegate was for me. So I applied. I applied for that seat with my Washington County Republican Central Committee, and they selected me out of a number of candidates who had applied, and my name was sent off to the governor's office to be selected. So that's pretty much where my political adventures began. Coming up on 5 years now. I never thought I would even enjoy working in the political arena as much as I do now, but it's really good work. It's good work. It's hard work. It can be nasty work. It really can be it's a blood sport. I've heard one of my Republican friends say it is a blood sport. But when you keep centered who you're working for the people. That really kind of helps you keep things in perspective about the work that needs to be done.
You're being very humble though, because it was a huge milestone event. First black female Republican ever voted to the Maryland delegation.
Well, not voted, but
Appointed.
even serving
Right.
in the Republican caucus, the first ever in Maryland's history. Which, when you think about that, you're like, so no other black woman has ever served in this capacity. No, I was the first, and I didn't even know that. I didn't do my research like that. Like, say, okay, will I be the first? I didn't care, whatever, until someone mentioned that to me when I was appointed, and I had taken my oath. I thought, wow, I guess that is quite impressive, if I must say so myself.
And yet you don't necessarily hang your hat on that. In other
No,
words,
absolutely not.
the identity politics is not something that you focused on, but
No.
it is still a cool thing to say.
Yes, it is a cool thing to say.
And
yes.
you have a daughter, I understand, and I'm sure it probably was very, very cool for her to hear
Yes,
that.
yes.
So,
She's quite proud of her mom, and I am appreciative that I can be that role model for her to, aspire to do even greater.
congratulations on that. That's fantastic. I think that's a great story. that applies to us all. Now, as after you got elected as delegate, suddenly you went from being starry-eyed, right, having goals and dreams, to suddenly, like you said, the person who said, now you're in the blood sports, and now you were in the thick of it.
Yes.
What happened then? What was it like when the rubber met the road?
Oh my. Okay, so let me set the stage for you guys. I know you remember COVID. Yes, that's when I went into the General Assembly in January of 2021, January of 2021. Fully masked on the campus in Annapolis. We were in small desks, 6 feet apart, behind a plexiglass border. It was a joke, really. I mean, I don't even know what we were doing. It was the craziest thing ever. But wearing your mask all day, it was really not the best of situations at that time, and it was really drinking from a fire hose. It really was. It was a lot of information because I came in the middle of someone else's term. At that time, it was Senator. Well, he was appointed to Senator Paul Quarterman was once the delegate. It was in the middle of his term, and it was during COVID. So typically, when you come in as a newly elected state delegate, you go through all kinds of trainings, and they really kind of graciously kind of lay out the red carpet whenever you're kind of getting used or becoming knowledgeable of what your role is going to be. Well, I didn't get any of that. It was really my comrades in the caucus who just kind of helped me get acclimated to the logistics of being a state delegate. I'd get things in my email, telling me to do something, and I'd go next door to Delegate Neil Parrott. We shared an office. I'm like, Neil, what is this? What do I need to do with this form? And Neil was always very helpful with helping me, get around and do the things I need to do, how to draft a bill and where you drop your bills and all those things. So literally my first session was I was so green. I was so wet behind the ears as far as knowing what my role was and just what to do. But I'd like to say that it was a good learning curve. It was a hard learning curve. There was some really windy, curvy, hilly roads with black ice. But it was a good learning curve. I learned a lot. I learned what to do. I learned what not to do. So I take all of those lessons and experiences as a good tool for me and a good resource for me to really know the inner workings of the General Assembly. So much so that I think it has prepared me for such a time as this to be running as the Lieutenant Governor for Maryland.
Talk about your running mate a little bit, will you? John Myrik.
Oh, John Myrik. John. Let me tell you about John. John is a man of integrity. He's very smart, very intelligent. When I talk with John, I learn something new every day. He's a man who I know would serve Maryland well in Annapolis. He's very intelligent. He has served this country in the Air Force. He has also served as a former law enforcement officer, as a sheriff deputy in Harford County. He's just a man that's very smart. He has some wonderful ideas. Before I decided to say yes to his offer to be his running mate, we had many conversations about his platform and what he stood for. I never questioned, did our principles align, because when he ran for Senate and when I ran for Congress, so I'm no stranger to running for office. Hopefully this will be my last run and I'll win this time if it be God's will. But for the most part, John, I have had seen him in various other places when he was running for Senate. So I knew our principles aligned and we agreed on many, many things. And when it was proposed to me to be his running mate, I still wanted to be prayerful about if this was the path that God wants for me. I don't want to do anything outside of his will. So, I thought about it, prayed about it, talked it over with my husband. and my daughter, of course. We're a small family. And I decided to say yes because I trust that John will be a wonderful governor for the state of Maryland. He has great ideas. We have great ideas. We have many conversations about where we want to see Maryland prosper, and that's what we want to do. Prosper is really what we want, where we want to see Maryland go.
And that's fantastic. And of course, the state of Maryland, both our fiscal state and a number of other areas are actually in crisis at this point. Even the current governor, Wes Moore, whom you will be running against, I believe he just announced today and made it official that he will be running for re-election. So you are working to run against him. But he stated with this last budget that came out earlier this year that Maryland is now in a fiscal crisis. And so we're headed towards, according to his projections, a 16% deficit by 2030. Now, a deficit of 16% is not sustainable. I mean, actually, if any CEO of any corporation
Yes.
had gone to their board and said, well, here's a budget where in 5 years we're going to be running a 16% deficit, I would argue that that CEO and their entire staff would be fired on the spot.
Immediately.
Yes.
Yeah. And so the amount of suffering that will cause is going to be tremendous. That is obviously something that you would have to deal with very quickly. What is the plan that you and John Myrik have as far as starting to tackle that issue? It's very large.
Yes, absolutely. We've had conversations about the budget and fiscally where Maryland is. We are not in a good state of affairs right now, so we've got to look at that budget with a microscope and really look at it with a very constructive eye and look at where do we need to make some cuts. I mean, the Democrats are known to add taxes upon taxes and fees upon fees to close the deficit. And that's not the way to close the deficit. That could be possibly, one way, maybe. But I think the better way that John and I are thinking about is we have to identify where more cuts need to be made. Even in your own household budget, if you bring in, $8,000 a month and you're paying your mortgage and car insurance and car payments and water bill, but if your expenses outrun your money that you're bringing in, and clearly you're going to be running in the red, and maybe your mortgage won't be paid. You do that for a few months, where are you going to find yourself? With a foreclosure notice.
Or no lights.
Or no lights. Your lights will be off or your water will be off. So, when you just kind of put it in that very small window of our own personal budgets, our own personal household budgets, you can't spend more than you bring in. So what do you have to do? All right, let me find out if Geico is less insurance than State Farm. All right, well, let me look at Antietam. Do I really need all these cable stations on my TV? Let me look at trimming back. That's what we do as average citizens. We cut back. We cut to make sure that we're not overspending. And that's what we need to do for the state of Maryland. I don't want to see anyone lose their job. I mean, that's a travesty. People go to work, to pay their bills. And we're certainly not suggesting that's what we're planning to do. But we do need to scrutinize the budget to see where is the bleed. There's too much money being spent. If I understand correctly, and in my readings, the budget even increased. At one point, it was $64 billion, and now it has increased to $67 billion. But they claim to have cut. Well, if you do the math on that, clearly you've not cut much if the budget increased. So that's what we're going to look at. Where do we need to cut? Where are there duplicative services? Maybe there, departments that can be consolidated. We might can look at that again. We're not making any definite answers as far as what we're going to do, but we're going to look at everything. Every stone is going to be looked under.
And And I think everyone, I believe, is in agreement that something needs to be done with the budget. I mean, if everyone was not in agreement with that, then there would not be a focus from those politicians who are increasing the budget coming up with statements such as, well, we actually are not in a surplus. Governor Moore did an interview just over the last week, and it was with Fox News, and the interviewer asked him, what about the growing deficit? And his response was, "Oh, that myth has been debunked over and over."
Yes, I saw that. I saw that.
Yes, but our credit rating just got downgraded by
Yes.
one of the international organizations that it's their job, it's their purpose for existence, to rate large multinational corporations and governments on their credit worthiness, and they downgraded Maryland just a couple of months ago. The reason being, of course, that our finances are in disorder.
Yes.
So everyone, even those who won't admit it, actually understand what is going on. But of course, that message has to get down to the voters.
Yes.
And so when it comes to voters reaching the voters in a state like Maryland, which is very heavily Democratic, you are a Republican. How are you going to reach those voters in a state where there is such a large majority of Democrat voters?
That's a very good question, Ethan. In every opportunity that we are presented, John and I, we have to, what you just stated so eloquently, when we just give people the basic facts about what's going on, and I'm going to add the cost of your car registration going to the MVA has increased. I'm going to add maybe if you have emissions done on your car, that has increased. If we just talk to voters about those simple facts that, of course, go across party line. I mean, Democrats go to the MVA just like Republicans go, just like independents go, to get your car registered. When we just present those basic facts, black and white, money, you know, talking about your wallet or your pocketbook, just present those facts to people. Remove the, oh, he's a handsome guy, he's personable, he's so likable, he's so pleasant. We've got to get people beyond those superficial things about this governor and really drill it down to, do you know how much it costs? Have you registered your car lately to the MVA? How much did it cost you last year compared to this year? We've got to just present those facts to people, and hopefully that they're going to be able to say, "Oh, I didn't know that," or "I haven't paid attention to that." Stick with facts with people, and I think that is the main thing that we're doing in every conversation that I have with people. Republicans get it because we're preaching to the choir when I speak to most Republicans, but it's the independents, and I don't know if you know the latest statistics with independents. They're in Maryland. They're outnumbering Republicans and Democrats.
There's a lot of people that are not satisfied with their party, both Republicans and Democrats. And in order for your party to win, in order for you and John to win the governor's election, you're going to have to win those independents over.
Absolutely, we're going to have to massage those voters. We're going to have to find them, not literally, but really connect with them, reach out to them hopefully through our state GOP and getting assistance